as soon as I realize something is like the desired form, I begin to get nervous. And I got very, if I had to say to him, what would I have said to Don Bowman? I'm getting nervous. It's not the answer he wanted to have for me. He wanted to know what I was getting nervous for. So I decided literally to write a piece, to do a piece. I didn't decide to write it at first. I did it as a performance piece, which is an accident. Because again, contingency enters into this thing the way contingency enters into experience. The KUSC, the Southern California, Los Angeles PBS station, wanted to make a survey of California art, Southern California art, the California artists, and the California poets. And they give everybody an hour, and they send it around. And I said, why do you want me? I'm not a Californian. They said, you've been living here a long time, and furthermore, the people putting this together said they insist on having you. I said, all right, what the hell? But it was in the summer, and I didn't know what to do about it. And I was in the process of doing talk pieces that would be commissioned by people, and they didn't have to be, I could do them anyway, but I had to assemble a group of friendly faculty so I could do a talk performance. And I did. And the talk performance addressed the Wellman's question in terms of a parable. The parable was this. I took my 70-year-old grandmother to go shopping. She insisted she needed to buy shoes. And I would take her to go shopping for shoes. And once we got to this was an experience I was related. Once I really did this. I took her to Sears Roebuck because Nola Roebuck was gone. But she remembered Sears, and she wouldn't feel alienated. Whereas if I took her to Nordstrom, she would feel it's an alien country. What kind of world do they have? The department store run by Nordstrom. They sound like Scandinavians. She was used to Jewish merchants and Jewish stores, and so she was hoping for one like that. And she felt happy that I was taking her to Sears, even though it was not a Jewish store. I took her there, and then the question of finding things. In a department store, everything has a kind of theoretical order. It's a theoretical order. That is, you have the lingerie here, you have shoes here, you have this there. Now, there's a theoretical order, but the theoretical order is not based on any inherent underlying logic either. That is to say, why shoes should have abutted perfumes, I have no idea. But in a particular system, it was cosmetics and makeups was on the borderline of the territory called shoes. There's no particular reason for that, but of course it's not terrible for that to be the case, but you have to realize it. And so you don't know what to expect in the next system that you come upon. You're totally surprised when it turns out to be lawnmowers. You went from cosmetics to shoes, or you went from shoes to cosmetics, and then you were in lawnmowers. And then you go from lawnmowers to what? You go from lawnmowers to gymnastic equipment. And you go from gymnastic equipment to, what do we go from? Lingerie. And I had to find her shoes. So I thought, well, let's go find her shoes. And we go to this place where they have all the shoes. And she wants something that will be comfortable, really comfortable for hanging around in. And she doesn't like the price, because the last time she bought shoes must have been who knows when. And she doesn't like the way the price, but also she doesn't see the kind of shoes she wants. And I learned there's also another section somewhere else called bargain shoes, which is not a shoe thing, but it's an anything thing, it's a bargain. So a bargain lawnmower might be right next to a bargain pair of shoes. Because it's the bargain section, right? So you have an order that essentially begins to become rather troublesome. You don't know what's coming next. In collage poetry, you delight when you don't know what's coming next. But my mother was not delighted. She was panicked. And telling the story of my mother in Sears became a kind of exercise in finding the difficulty of taking pleasure in something that bewilders you, which is not the most common problem in poetry, but it certainly has that aspect of bewildering, and maybe a useful form of bewildering. In other words, as long as bewildering someone is worth doing, as long as it delays a closure, collage was worth something when it delayed closure for people who were too used to closure, for people who were struggling against closure. And this made, but when collage became literally a form of propriety, and it became a thing, that's the thing we do collage. So I wound up basically offering this extraordinarily long story parable as my answer to the question. And it didn't answer the question in the sense that it said, I have done this because I'm tired of being mildly confused or pretending I'm confused. Because what happens is poets soon got very familiar with that, with the habits of collage, and furthermore got to use it so often that it was ultimately a banal approach. But is it always banal? Is there a rule for that? In theory, there may be a rule for it, but my test of it is a test of experience. There are works that are collage works that work anyway. I have not found my work dealing with collage in recent times relevant, but there are things collage can't do, which is kind of interesting. It can't, because it can't really engage with the problematics of the form of experience that we call its narrative form. Collage doesn't work as true narrative. And the reason it doesn't is because it's structured on the breaking up of the true narrative or the breaking up of story. Now here's a crux. I have really made an argument for, and I'm making an argument for it again here, as I make it again and again because I think I'm right, that what we call narrative conventionally essentially is not narrative, but a kind of plot-like thing, which I call story. And let us suppose that a story is a chain of events and parts of events that as it were, that affect a significant transformation. What is an event? An event is some action that moves something from some place to some other place in some way. So what is a narrative? It's not like a sequence of events and parts of events that affect a significant transformation. I argue that narrative essentially is the name I'm giving to the confrontation of a desiring subject with the threat or promise, or threat and promise, of a significant transformation that he, she, or they try to bring about or try to forestall. And it's possible that they're doing both at the same time, trying to bring it on and trying to forestall it at the same time because of its ambiguous outcome. Every transformation is threatening to anybody who faces it, because it turns out that the transformation has turned you from a beggar in the street into a king of a country. Once you're the king of a country, you forget having been a beggar and you wind up having to deal with the king's troubles. And the king's troubles may be revolution and possible execution. I mean, suddenly